2014 meeting of the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. In attendance, regular member Coombs, Leskovich, and I'm acting chair Galdenzi. The first item on the agenda is, under old business, is application 2013-14-10. It's Rolling Meadows subdivision. 6 lots with a 1.3 plus or minus acre open space parcel at 65 Mill Road. Assessor map 29, lot 4, R40 zone. Owners Henry P. Forte. Applicant developer Ricky Construction Group Incorporated. It was a continuation from the February 6th meeting.
Okay. If the applicant's agent doesn't mind, we're going to proceed with a bunch of things that have come in, and then we'll end up with your letter to Kurt Weiss as the last submission, and we'll do, a response. Okay.
Okay.
So here we go. Here's a set of those, and then there's also a set of these. Okay. Which one of these? Okay. This is for Mary. Thank you. Okay. These have been sent in either through email or in response to applicant referrals on the application. So that let's go through the order. Some of them are self-explanatory, but since at the last meeting I had done a email that I received and I entered into the record. I would like to continue with that procedure. Okay, so the first item would be in chronological sequence, would be a letter from Lindsay S. Suter, 16 Mill Road, February 6, 2014, and it's actually addressed to the Town Council of North Branford. And also it was requested that it be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And this is regarding the proposed development at 65 Mill Road. I'll just go real quick through it. It has come to my attention that the field currently under corn at 65 Mill Road is being considered for development as single-family housing. This prompts both deep concerns and great opportunities. My main concern is simple. North Branford needs its open space and farmland. Our farms and natural areas define North Branford, once known as North Farms. They fed the city, the growing city of New Haven in the previous 3 centuries. Agriculture is why we are here in the fertile Pawtucket Valley. If we build and pave over our land, what are we? Just another undistinguished suburb in an increasingly crowded state. Our community has an opportunity, I believe, an obligation to step back and look at the situation to see how it can work together to benefit everyone. There are potential problems with the proposed development, yet there are also opportunities and resources for a wonderful solution. First, some of the problems. Losing our rural agricultural character. Losing our open space, losing the pleasant views, all of us who ride on Mill Road. Ecological impact, losing open field habitat that currently supports a variety of wildlife, especially birds of prey and migrating birds. Increased pressure on the Farm River, a Class 3 protected trout stream, a drinking water source for the Regional Water Authority, a riverine habitat for wildlife including mink, otter, night heron, etc. Added burden on our underfunded school system and public services. The proposed housing type is targeted at families, not singles or young couples, not the elderly or empty nesters. As the saying goes, corn doesn't go to school. Opportunities include preserve and protect the rural and agricultural character of the area, preserve and protect our open spaces, preserve and enhance the ecological richness of the river corridor, support local farmers. We have a variety of resources too. First and most importantly are the owners, the Ford family, who have diligently maintained the property for generations. The North Branford Land Conservation Trust, a supportive ally in State Senator Ed Meyer, the Regional Water Authority and their Conservation Easement Program, Connecticut State Conservation Programs, most notably the Deep Open Space and Watershed Acquisition Grant Program, Trout Unlimited Embrace a Stream Grant Program, interested farmers, interested and engaged neighbors. In the light of drawbacks and opportunities here, I would like to ask the town to delay the review of the proposed development to provide the necessary time to engage all parties and come up with the best possible solution. If we can come to the table respectively and creatively, I am sure we can get to an outcome that benefits everyone. For instance, the North Branford Land Conservation Trust could purchase the field with a combination of their funds, the Regional Water Authority Conservation Easement money, ASWAL grants, that's acquisition deep grants, and private and nonprofit money. The field would be rented to a local farmer for hay. The outcome is the owners get a fair price for the land and avoid huge tax gains. The water quality of the farm river is improved, enhancing its ecology and its portability. The community retains its scenic and agricultural character. The farmers get land use for favorable rates, and the North Branford Land Conservation Trust gets income. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I've already researched and spoken with the resources mentioned here, and I'm glad to assist in any way I can. Please give this process a chance. Okay, and it's also with a CC copy to the applicant, to the owner of the property and to myself. Next to be entered in is the referral response from the East Shore, Alex Sinati, Assistant Director, dated February 7th, 2014. East Shore District Health Department received the application and review fee on February 6th, 2014. Based on our review, would recommend approval for this 6-lot subdivision for on-site septic systems and public water. Each lot requires an engineered septic system plan for lot development. In addition, there's another East Shore letter that's dated February 18th, 2014, to the project engineer, Ryan McRavo of the engineering firm, that indicates to him on February 6, 2014, we received a copy of the proposed 6-lot subdivision for reference property. 5 new lots are to be created, and while 1 lot has an existing house. The proposed lots are to be connected to public water and on-site subsurface sewer disposal septic systems. Soil testing was conducted in December 2013. We reviewed the plans and offer the following. Subdivision proposal. The water line is expected to be extended to each proposed lot. Please identify label reserve areas more conspicuously. Individual lots, lot 1, test correct test pit 1B, modeling 35, ledge 65, total depth not 84. Lot 2, no comment. Lot 3, Lot 4, and Lot 5, and Lot 6, no comment. We provided our approval to the North Branford Planning and Zoning on February 7th, 2014. Okay, the next one is from the Regional Water Authority, mandatory referral of the application due to the watershed area in which the site is in. This is dated February 14th, 2014. The Regional Water Authority has reviewed the above referenced application. The property is within the watershed of the Farm River, which is a tributary to Lake Saltonstall, a public water drinking supply reservoir. The applicant is proposing a 6-lot subdivision. The residences will be served by public water and on-site septic systems. The Farm River is located on the western edge of the property. There is a 1.3 acre proposed open space buffer along the Farm River corridor. Based on the information submitted, we have the following comments. 1, erosion control should be installed along the north property line of Lot 5 and along the edge of the field parallel to the Farm River corridor. If the open space area is stabilized during the initial phase of the project, erosion controls may not be needed along the Farm River. 1 or 2 water bars should be installed along the driveway to Lot 5. 2, if the residences are to be heated with fuel oil, it should be stored above ground. Storage tanks and associated piping in the basement should be segregated from floor drains and sub pumps to prevent spills and leakage from discharging into the environment. 3, during construction, all oil, paint, or other hazardous materials should be stored in a secondary container and removed to a locked indoor area with an impervious floor during non-working hours. 4, the property is currently being used for agricultural purposes. The open space area should be stabilized with a proper ground cover. This activity should be included in the construction sequence. It should be accomplished early in the construction process, considering there is no planned activity for the proposed open space. It's signed by Ron Walters, their senior environmental analyst. The next is in response to the archaeological request that was submitted to the state archaeologist Nicholas Balladoni by the applicant Ryan McErose as the attorney for, not the attorney, I'm sorry, the engineer for the applicant. And the response letter attached to the emails that were sent to him and from him. But I'll just read the letter that he sent out from Nicholas Baldoni, Connecticut State Archaeologist, dated February 3rd, 2014, with the letterhead of UConn, University of Connecticut. Thank you for an opportunity to review the above named development project for its archaeological and historical sensitivity. A review of the state of Connecticut archaeological site files and maps shows 2 known archaeological sites on the project area. These sites include the Russell Farm site and the Farm River site, both of which represent pre-contact Native American campsites dating to 4,000 years ago. The Office of the State Archaeological Department recommends an archaeological reconnaissance survey to identify and locate any cultural resources which may exist on the project area. Review of topography and environmental factors suggests that the archaeological survey can be confined to building lots 3 to 6. Archaeological sites located during the survey can be mitigated through professional excavation. Due to weather constraints, the recommended survey cannot proceed until snow cover has melted and the ground thawed. As a result, this request need not hold up the town's application review process. The survey can be completed any time prior to actual land use activity on the property. The survey should be conducted in accordance with the State Historical Preservation Office's environmental review primer for Connecticut's archaeological resources. Thank you again for this opportunity, and we look forward to working with you, your client, and the town of North Branford in the preservation of any archaeological sites on the project area. Please do not hesitate to contact me at the university should you have any questions. And like I said, there's the attached emails from the engineer to Mr. Baldoni and his response back with the attached letter. The next was sent to me through email. It's dated March 6, 2014, from Peter Strickland regarding the Rolling Meadows 65 Mill Road. This is in response to the last meeting on Rolling Meadows. On the issue of an environmental impact analysis, I don't see the problem with requiring one to ensure the town is making the right decision on this parcel, which is used by wild animals and migratory birds, not to mention the social and economic impact on the town. Therefore, I am insisting that an environmental impact analysis be performed before proceeding, so we don't make a decision that we regret in the future. On the issues of soil samples, to hear the representative of the developer say that he doesn't see a reason for one due to the fact that there is municipal water here is infuriating. 34 and 44 Mill Road both have wells for their water supply. And what about the property on Tutucket Road? Don't they count? Who will be responsible if a hazardous material or banned substance is unearthed and wells are contaminated? I am demanding a soil sample be done before issuing any permits. As to the issue of American Indian heritage, I would think that the state of Connecticut would not inspect the entire field when their impact is minimal and only in the area of the new bridge that was being erected at the time. In your conversations with the state, did you ask if the entire field was inspected? If not, this issue has not been resolved to my satisfaction. The Farm River was much larger hundreds of years ago, and the area where the state inspected most likely was underwater, so close that common sense would tell you not to live that close to the river. If only a small area was inspected, I insist that a thorough investigation be done by an American Indian archaeologist specialist on the entire property. As to the issues of drainage and sidewalks, I saw no drainage plans on the site plans dated January 9th, 2014. I would hope no permits are issued until a complete design, drainage design is submitted and approved by the town engineer. What if the proposed sliver of land donated to the town is not large enough? Does it take into account the culvert drainage pipe that exists just east of 44 Mill Road and crosses the road at a slightly northeast to southwest direction? We should take the time to cross our T's and our L's or I's. Please issue no permits until this is complete. As to sidewalks, the precedence has been set when Wood Chase Lane was extended. Properties on Mill Road that were part of the subdivision have sidewalks. I know they are necessary. I know that they are necessary. The average speed on Mill Road is between 35 and 50 miles per hour and is used by numerous runners and walkers. It would also be beneficial to parents and caregivers at the athletic field on the corner of Mill and Wood Chase to be able to take a child or loved one to see this solid property and waterfall safely. Thank you for reading this into the record. In response to, I've also included to enter into the record the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Natural Diversified Database Areas for North Branford dated December 2013. Highlighted are the areas in a slash mark that are state and federal listed species and significant natural communities. The location of this site has no such designation. The next one is quite a lengthy email between the president of the Land Trust, David Sargent, and myself relating to the status of the open space and their interaction as to whether what their information from their organization as to any stipulations on their acceptance of the open space piece as the entity to be deeded. It goes back to, I'll do from the back, and let me just highlight some of this because this is for further discussion tonight on the disposition of specifically some of the information here. The oldest part of the email dated February 14th from David Sargent indicates the stipulations initially that they've come up with. And these are pretty practical that are partially what's covered in our requirements under a subdivision. But there is one section about a barrier between the open space property and the subdivided lot that's next to it. So let me just read this quickly. The builder to construct silt fence on the builder's property to prevent runoff onto the open space property. 1, the builder is not to remove any topsoil from the open space property. 2, the builder is not to dump any debris on the open space property, whether temporarily or permanently. 3, before conducting construction, builder is to erect a barrier between the open space property and the subdivision properties that border the open space property. Such barrier will consist of a combination of boulders or other aesthetically pleasing permanent physical barrier and appropriate trees, in parentheses, visual barrier. This will prevent encroachment onto the open space property and also screen the view from the open space property to the houses on the subdivision property. 4, builder is to arrange for and pay for survey markers, in parentheses, monuments, at the 2 corners between the open space property and the subdivision. This will provide a permanent, easy, locatable border. Technically, all the corners of each lot will be, as required under the subdivision regulations, pinned. This particular line could be added in to be permanent concrete markers. Okay, and this issue about the barrier could be further addressed, okay? Here again, I gave, in response to that, I gave an email back to David to say that his requested items had not been reviewed yet, and that I would be reviewing them at this meeting. And the thing is that you probably would have some discussion on the treatment of the specifics of the barrier, delineating the open space area. And I also asked that you would probably want to know what type of use the trust would want on the land, since it affects the treatment of the groundwater cover, the ground cover that the planning and zoning approval might have the developer establish before deeding over the parcel. That's a logical thing that we would end up having in the condition of approval. And I mentioned it was currently a field of cut corn stalks with exposed soil. And I also had said that in my earlier email to him, I had met with the Regional Water Authority representative discussing the possibility of an alternative of a rented hayfield on the upper portion from the access farm road, which is the upper portion from the Farm River, and not the side that's down from the access Farm River Road to the Farm River. And I asked that they consider this possibly at their next meeting, which was yesterday. And also, I told them that the existing farm road here again has to be retained. And this was discussed at your previous meeting about the deeded rights that have been given to the rear landowner for farming that that person also has the access to that rear that he owns. Also, I reiterated what the Conservation and Inland Wetlands Agency had on their input. I don't think I really covered that with you. They had referred all this information on their comments to the town council during their consideration of asking the town council whether the town would want the open space. And basically, their concern was to keep it in a passive use. This was discussed both at their January 22nd meeting and their February 26th meeting. So they've had two shots to further add any comments. And basically, you know, the passive use, because of the Farm River along the entire west boundary, the wetland soil area near to the river, and the public drinking watershed location. And they felt by keeping the area as dedicated open space, that portion of the Farm River Greenway, which was proposed in the open space plan and the town plan of conservation and development, would be established and preserved. Other than that, they didn't have any further comments to the commission. Okay. So in response to that, okay, he gave me today what had come up from the previous meeting on their last meeting, March 5th. The following can be read into the minutes of your meeting, or you may point out our concerns as you choose. As a note, I promoted the idea of maintaining the existing corn portion of the open space as a hayfield and the rest a natural buffer to the Farm River. As it stands now, the North Branford Land Conservation Trust doesn't own any fields, so maintaining this might be an issue. A member was supposed to walk the property and reach out to the Pages currently using the field for corn for their thoughts on it. This hasn't happened yet due to the weather. However, we think the Pages might be willing to do this, and if not, there may be another horse farm willing to do so. It is likely less than an acre we are considering that would remain as a hayfield, and we weren't sure if the size would be an issue. Okay, now these are the things also that they were reiterating. As for the ground cover on the open space portion of the subdivision, to prevent erosion, the land trust would request the developer to grade as necessary and establish an appropriate ground cover for a hayfield on the existing field portion of the open space set aside. As for the visual barrier between the building lots and the open space, the consensus seemed to be a plan to plant a stepped conifer buffer that included spruce trees but not limited to, and no hemlocks. As for the physical barrier, the main concern is encroachment. It happens all too often. It might be that more inviting with a field next to a river. So our thought was something that was obvious, permanent, and aesthetically appropriate. We thought the idea of boulders placed at intervals on the property line, as in the subdivision of the Shantz farm, was a good idea. Other alternatives might work equally as well. This is a very scenic area of town, and an area the town wants to protect as much. Although scenic may not be a planning and zoning requirement that is easy to define as say, the minimum 15% on the 10% set aside for open space. It is an equally important requirement to consider, if not more. It is a quality our town is slowly losing. The trust hopes the commission will keep this requirement in mind when making their final decisions. And lastly, in response to that issue about contacting the Pages, I gave him some information for contact, and he then emailed me back this afternoon to say that he had spoken with Stephanie Page, and she said yes, she would be willing to hay it but she also said it might be too small to get the equipment in there successfully. In any event, she said at the very least, they could hog brush it to keep it from growing up and keeping the invasives down. I had kind of estimated from a rough measurement that it was probably about an acre that was on the, I guess would be the easterly side of the farm road. So we'll see what happens with that, but that's something that, once we get through the final things here, we can further get back to, okay? So that's the last here, and then what I have also is copies of the letter that was submitted today from the engineer to Kurt Weiss, and also along with it revised maps. So let me pass those out to you, and perhaps either Kurt or Ryan, you want to review those possibly? Would that be easier?
Yes, that would be fine, if that's okay. We got
Oh, you do? Okay. Okay.
For the record, my name is Ryan McAvoy. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Mylon McBroom, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Without going into too much detail through all the items that were just read to the record by Carol, I can assure you that the comments raised by the Regional Water Authority are standard in nature, and we take no exception to them. With regard to the state archaeologist letter, I did speak with him on the phone about this, and he would actually be willing to go out and view the property himself. He just is concerned about the snow cover and that it wouldn't be too much use for at least another month or so. But he did want to make it clear, and I think he said it in his letter, that this reconnaissance, as he words it, is something that can be done, after a decision's made, and that wouldn't impact their ability to go out there and take a look at the site. So I think, because my concern was that it would cause delay in the application process, and he assured me, and I think his letter makes it clear that wouldn't be something that should delay this in any way. With respect to the open space, it's been the applicant's position that certainly planting the current fields with some sort of grass mix is certainly something he'd be willing to consider. Something that would be hayable is obviously doable, something that he'd be willing to undertake. And certainly any recommendations that you may have about buffering along the nearest residential property. I believe one of the emails mentioned Shantz Farm, and I think on that particular property they had 2-foot boulders, 100-foot spaced on center, which I don't think would amount to more than a handful or a couple 3 or 4 on this particular line. So I would be happy to accept or listen to any recommendations you guys may have about that as well. With respect to our response letter to Kurt's email with his initial comments, he had a request that we investigate the possibility of picking up some of the drainage that currently comes off of Mill Road onto the property. There is, in the vicinity of the proposed lots, there's really only one dry well catch basin on the opposite side of Mill Road. And after discussions with the applicant, we determined that it's reasonable and feasible to provide drainage on our side of the road that will pick up overflow from the dry well. So we connect into that existing dry well, come across and install a new drainage line off the road in the grassed area with curbless catch basins, eventually directed towards the drainage ditch that was constructed as part of the bridge improvements some time ago. Additionally, he had a request that we review the details for the removal of a portion of the middle beam rail, the guardrail that's in the vicinity of lots 5 and 6. We provided the details and notation as to where that would have to be relocated or removed to. And he did have a comment regarding snow shelves, and I think there may have been some confusion with the lot numbers on that, but ultimately we are providing for an enhanced right-of-way. We're increasing the right-of-way by granting land to the town. We're removing trees that are right alongside the roadway in some areas, and we're going to be removing some fencing that's up along the existing right-of-way. So there will certainly be an opportunity for an increased snow shelf on most of these lots. And I think he may have been, and I'm just assuming that at Lot 2, there's actually a very limited snow shelf in terms of the fact that there's a change in grade a few feet off the edge of the road. If that's something he'd be interested in widening that, we'd be happy to pull back some of those counters. I don't think that that would be a major effort on the applicant's part. With respect to his comment regarding the road width widening, he suggested that it would be, that the road should be widened in the area of lots 3 and 4. And, we certainly respect Mr. Weiss's position on that matter. But it is the applicant's position that given recent state Supreme Court cases, that there's limited ability for towns to impose requirements on applicants and subdivisions like this for roadway improvements on an existing road. And it's our opinion that in this particular case that road widening should not be something that's imposed on the applicant. We'd be happy to go through that in a little bit more detail, but that is essentially the position that we've taken on this. And I think state Supreme Court cases have sort of backed up that position. Additionally, some of the comments from the neighbors with regard to sidewalks and curbing, we have requested a waiver of those items, although, as I mentioned at the previous meeting, again, imposing requirements of roadway improvements, which include sidewalks and curbs on an existing road, are something that the state Supreme Court has essentially made it clear that applicants in a subdivision such as this should not be required to do. So that is a brief summary of the changes that we've made to the plans. Again, I know some of the discussions that are going to be had are going to regards to open space and a few other items, so I don't want to get too far without hearing if there's any comments from the commission.
And just a quick follow-up on my end,
Yeah.
I just got the plans, I don't have I have to review them, and I'll have to respond, once I look at the changes. I mean, it just came in today, so I've got a letter, and I'll look at it, and then we'll go from there, in terms of all that. In terms of widening, I mean, the issue is a safety issue from our perspective, so I will look at that, and we can make whatever we feel is the appropriate decision for this board. I mean, we're not looking at it from a nicety point of view, we're looking at it from a necessity point of view, so. But I will look at everything, I've got to take a look and,
Just for my own vacation here, so, I mean, we're talking, the area you were talking about was just in front of 3 and 4, right? Certainly
pretty
not-
much, that's,
a few hundred feet of
there's a
roadway.
bend in the road, and it sort of
Yeah, I
narrows,
can
and
see
that's.
it, yeah. Right, so it wasn't the entire
Oh,
length
no,
of the
no.
property, you're saying 3 and 4.
Yeah, and if you
It's a
were,
busy street, I mean,
Yeah.
if you were
yeah,
to
I-
widen it, you have to do it on the side, on this side of the street, not the
Right.
other opposite side.
And they're also requested, and they show on there, they're giving us additional right-of-way to make sure that we have basically 25 feet from the center line of the road into this property. Because some of the existing right-of-way was almost right on the pavement, the existing paved portion of the road. We're trying to get a little more
Yep.
width to the right-of-way as well.
Do you want us to check the Supreme Court ruling to see if there was any exceptions to that decision? It's a matter of just pulling it out.
Yeah, because as you were speaking, I'm thinking, if it was just, hey, we want a bigger road, because it looks nicer, one thing. But if it's raised as a safety issue, that's
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
my
and I think-
concern, so
I think those are things we have to look at.
I'd be curious to see exactly what it said.
Well, and if there's something you want to eventually refer to the town attorney as to his judgment of the commission, if they so required the widening, whether that would be in contrary to that particular decision of the Supreme Court.
I would think that, maybe it's not resident, but I would think there's been certain instances over the course of whenever that, towns have requested an increase in the width of the road due to the project.
I mean,
Well, I'd like to
Historically,
see- I'd like to
we have a
see
lot of
why.
small
Yeah.
roads,
Yeah.
and when you
Mhm.
start putting more traffic and more At some point, there's a breaking point, so yeah.
But-
I
Well,
mean,
I
you
mean,
have to
It's also
historically,
not
we
that-
have put that
widening.
condition on, when you have a little alignment problem or something,
I agree.
and it has been done.
It was
Also
standard.
cannot be the problem of that particular, people that are selling that piece of property. You know, you can't just say, oh, you're gonna have to pay for it, you know, widening a road because you're putting in a development. That makes no sense.
And I think historically, towns were, it wasn't uncommon to require things like roadway widening in certain cases, probably not dissimilar than this. But given, I think, the clarity that's come out in recent cases, it's something that, it's a burden that the courts have lifted from the subdivider on properties like this, where there's no proposed roadway, there's no new roadway. It's essentially an as-of-right development, single-family houses on an existing lot. And I'm not an attorney, obviously, so I can't describe exactly the nature of the ruling, but I can tell you from the perspective of other applications in other towns have actually modified their subdivision regulations to say that they can't do that. They can't impose that as a result of these particular cases. So again, we're not trying to be
Well, you're
adversarial here.
Well,
but-
you're familiar with the Auger Farm subdivision
Yeah,
on Auger Road
And it had to do with
extension.
eminent domain, it didn't have to do with, you know, the town could take a certain amount of property and make the road bigger because they own a certain amount of property off the streets. But they can't make the residents pay for it. I mean, in essence, I really think that you should
Yeah.
look up the Supreme
Ruling.
ruling, and then if we still have a question, to bring it to just Monday.
Yeah.
Because we could argue from now to doomsday, and
Yeah.
the law is the law.
Well, this
Well,
Mill Road.
I agree, I mean, the law's the law, so
Right.
if it's clear, it's clear. If it's,
This travelway was created in colonial times, because there's colonial houses all along this property. There's at least 3 significant houses that were located on this stretch from Forest Road to Tucket Road. So the question here is, this is what was the travelway, and for the reason that it is, I mean, we have had studies from the South Central Regional Council of Governments on the Route 22 interconnecting road between our town that goes from Guilford into our town into North Haven. And one of the things in that study indicated that there was an extremely large volume of traffic that took a shortcut to go down Mill Road into, the next community off of Tucket Road, that road that goes into East Haven and then up North
Right.
North Haven.
And that happens all over our town. I mean, Auger Road Extension is
It's just like the
town
Tucket Road.
And now it's
That
a
adjoining road
thoroughfare for people to
It's very
run through.
unimproved.
But
So, well,
that's the
The
nature of-
issue where, a lot of the concern comes, I mean, if you weren't putting any driveway cuts, then the road stays the same. And then all of a sudden, you're bringing people out to the edge of the road. And then, if you have an erratic road, yeah, it's a safety consideration. That's what I would look at, from that perspective.
well, the other
Not
thing
just
is,
to get it, for the through traffic, but also for the new traffic entering the road from the subdivision.
well, we have a high-volume generator in the soccer field. There's a parking lot there that was done in the DeLongo subdivision,
Well,
Phase
let-
1.
I say
So we have to look at more research on that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so,
It's
because we can, again, I
absolutely,
agree with
yeah.
Fran, we can talk
That's
all
it.
night about this, but I think
It's
it
a
could
cut
be very,
road.
very clear cut if the Supreme Court has a ruling on it, and
Yeah.
they do. So we need to see that. You want to discuss anything else on this?
I just, since the engineer has indicated that he was given a copy of that email that I entered in between, the email between myself and the land trust. So I imagine part of that, you said the boulders on the barrier.
Yeah.
Are you also,
Trees.
had you discussed the trees?
Not in detail, because I didn't get that email till this afternoon, so I didn't have a chance to discuss it in detail with the
Uh-huh.
applicant. But given that we're going to have to, wait for additional comments from Mr. Weiss, I'm sure we can, between myself and the applicant, come up with I would hope to be a reasonable
Mhm.
proposal to provide barriers along that. And I would say, as you mentioned, monumentation will have to be required on the lot line anyway. So,
Mhm. Well, I'll certainly have more discussion with the land trust
mhm.
and with a potential farmer that might be able to see.
But again,
Also-
with respect to the
Mhm.
vegetation on the existing farm portion of the open space, take no exception to planting
Trouble
hayable grass.
The trouble with planting hay is that 1 acre is a small area.
True.
And it doesn't, I mean, it needs more than just cutting the hay. It needs to be fertilized. And who's gonna do that for how many bales of hay you're gonna get out of an acre, plus the size of the equipment that goes into 1 acre?
I
It's
don't-
really difficult to hay.
Yeah.
I
So
don't think
you may
anyone's
have
gonna
to just go with
fertilize
brush hog and get,
Well, I think the whole idea was not to have
Stabilization.
till, if it
Yeah.
was gonna go into agricultural use, which probably that upper portion might be more appropriate to have the farmer that has access already to be able to have a stable cover on it, which would be either hay or something that would be cut so that there wouldn't
Right.
be exposed
Yeah.
soil and
Yep.
it would be
well,
stabilized.
yeah, it shouldn't be
Because,
exposed
because
soil,
the
that's
other,
for sure.
the other issue here, I can't speak for the land trust, but I would think they don't have the resources to be cutting any kind of wildlife mix on a yearly basis to prevent the invasive plants from growing in.
Well, they
Because
also
that's the
said that
biggest
Pages
concern.
would be willing to brush hog that area.
Well, and that's,
Which
and
would
that's,
be-
yeah, and that's why it presents an interesting opportunity to have some maintenance of the property. Plus, there's the fence that's, the gate, it's not a fence, it's a gate, that's on the town right-of-way at the entrance of that access road, so,
There's one other thing that comes to
Mhm.
my mind, is that if there is concern about wildlife in there,
yeah.
and if you have to go with brush hogging,
Yeah.
you're going to destroy a lot of natural
Mhm.
nesting or whatever is going on in there. So it seems as though maybe should be considered something that doesn't grow, that doesn't have to be brush hogged.
Mhm.
You know, some
the-
kind of
yeah.
good coverage. Don't ask me what that is, but
A conservation soil mix, something along those lines
Mm.
would provide a variety of native species that would probably be relatively maintenance-free. I think that there's certainly, again, very, cost minimal options
Right.
here.
Well,
and-
that was certainly gonna be probably the way to go from the other side of
right.
the farm road down to the river.
That's actually
Because that-
fairly reasonably vegetated
Mhm.
presently. I mean, it's not cleared all the way to the river. Up to that farm road, it's more or less farmed, but as you get past the farm road, there is some existing vegetation in that area, so I think we would just probably want to limit it to whatever's disturbed now, right? Yeah.
I think that field was used for cow corn, wasn't it? Or corn?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
kind of
it's
silage,
historically
right.
been for corn. So,
So
I
the
think,
access road for the town, is that the one that's deeded to the farmer, or would
Yes.
be deeded to the farmer?
yeah, and that had been historically, originally closer to the river, and it was
Mhm.
on slope land, really along almost the banks of the river.
Yep.
And when the Mill Road project came around, they relocated it to have it a less sloped area, my understanding. So it's been relocated and stabilized.
So how about monuments at the corners? Are you open to that?
Well, yeah, concrete monuments placed there's only, two
Just
corners.
Yep.
So,
I captured a few things of
Yeah,
the road widening, which talked about the deep rights to the farmer, the barriers in the trees, the monuments, the corners. And then some kind of maintenance-free plantings, or if
And,
it's hayable,
yeah.
whatever we decide on that.
I
There
mean,
was an issue with
we could-
sidewalks.
we could,
Sidewalks, yeah.
yeah, we could end up drafting based on what you said and some suggestive conditions to be either added to the plan or as standalone conditions, for them to implement in the, construction process. And, things about the deeding of the open space and the provisions within it would be a condition, just like we had in the Shantz subdivision. Let me just also reiterate too, the receipt of this had been so that actually you have on March 20th, the 64th day, regulations on a business item such as this allow 65 days for a subdivision application. If the commission can't come to a resolution or isn't ready to approve it, then they can ask the applicant for an additional request of time, not to exceed another 65 days.
Yep.
So hopefully we can resolve some of these things so that at the next time, if everything is in place, you might be able to deliberate on a decision. And also, if not, the applicant, I've discussed this with the engineers, his engineer, and probably, an extension to the next following meeting might be in order if they can't get resolved somehow.
Should capture the archaeological,
Huh?
the person from Yukon coming out too, we should
Right.
capture somehow.
Well,
Unless that
that's
occurs
another
before.
thing that has to be added in, the requirement of that. And whatever ends up, from that survey, if it warrants excavation, then there's some additional information. And depending on what happens under the state law too, and what's found, here again, it could be a problem, but we'll wait and see.
Okay, so we'll continue.
Okay,
Till
so,
March
He didn't
20th?
seem to think it was gonna be a problem. He
Well-
didn't seem to think he
It
had
won't
to.
hold us up, that's.
well, it might be a problem to the developer because
They
if he
find-
Well, if
uncovers
they
the
found
burial
something, yeah,
ground,
then it's a problem, but,
then there's some things that have
Right.
to be given to the state, okay?
We're
And some
continuing
other
to March 20th?
requirements, okay?
One last thing.
Okay, thanks.
That's with East Shore Health District's response here. There's a,
Oh, right,
yeah, there's a comment made on the test pit 1B. Has that been revised?
Yeah, in the latest plans you have, and it was just a scrivener's error. It's the two test pits that are on lot 1, which is the existing lot. We mislabeled the depth to ledge on one of the test pits, but again, this isn't for one of the proposed lots. This is just to demonstrate a code compliant reserve area for the existing house. But the testing on that particular lot was suitable for a code compliant reserve.
You should mark your revisions.
On sheet SD1, we updated the test.
Yeah, we said that.
Yeah.
So is that part of the Supreme?
Has that been submitted back to East Shore?
Yeah. is it
Uh,
part of the
no, it
Supreme
has
Court
not.
give us some- He had suggested, I thought, that,
Yeah.
yeah. For any, so sidewalks, that was one
Yeah.
thing we wanted
We'll find out about
to
that because
discuss, yeah.
I'm not sure if, obviously the grade would have to be taken down and, for the sidewalks to, I don't believe, that side on Mill Road does
Oh,
not
there-
have
there's not-
sidewalks where
on-
the soccer field is. It goes just
It's
up.
Mill Road from,
Right.
Wood Chase Lane, easterly to the limits of the Longo State subdivision.
Yeah.
It hasn't.
Because it was only on,
Okay.
so there's a gap there.
Okay. Just to follow up, if it would make you more comfortable, we could certainly resubmit this to Health Department and get a clean letter with it.
Anything else?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Second order of business is an update on the legal opinion. The zoning process to rebuild the rental hall with catering and restaurant at 730 Forest Road. Owner 730 Forest Road LLC. This was continued from our January 16th meeting. So we received,
This
I
was.
have not
rec-
read it.
Yeah,
So,
this was received at 6:01 today, PM. And I had emailed it to the three of you, but obviously it's kind of late that you have not read it. I don't know if,
Pat Young was here. Is that
Huh?
Pat Young?
what?
Even Pat Young?
Yeah, I thought I saw him out
He
there.
was there.
He left.
He
Um,
was sitting
Is Pat Young here?
He was, but
He-
he wasn't feeling too good, so he had to,
Oh, okay.
so he just told me to phone
Okay.
for tomorrow.
Well, I think they should just read it first, okay?
yeah, if we
Instead
could
of-
just,
And why don't you read your
we
copy
didn't get, we got this
too?
kind of late, so we just have to read it, so just give us a couple minutes.
Do you want another copy? No.
I know.
Pull it like it is.
Let me just say for the record, okay, because this legal opinion is based on the questions that I forwarded, of which you saw that,
Right.
which was, does a special use permit that had been granted under the zoning regulations, section 42D, historic conversion, expire because the historic and/or architecturally significant building has been destroyed? The answer is, to that question is, in effect, yes. And the second question, if this particular type of special use permit has to be treated like a variance that continues with the land, then what does the rebuilding have to conform to as to the size, design, and layout? The answer, the short answer is, the special use permit derived from a previous 42 section D historic conversion has been lost with the destruction of the building. Any new structure or building, even a replica of the 1985 VFW clubhouse, must comport with the permitted uses in area, location, and bulk standards applicable to a building in an R40 zone under the North Branford zoning regulations. So, in other words, there are some permitted uses, like a nonprofit club. I believe, you go through.
I'm not quite sure whether they have to go for a variance or a special use permit.
Well, in other
We've
words,
gotten lost here.
I don't believe he thinks it can be rebuilt
Yeah.
and be used as the same way that it was.
Before.
Well, that answers the question about historic. It's no longer there, so all that
That's
historic
gone.
doesn't apply.
It's gone.
But aside from that, it's his an R40 zone, right? So in order for them to build, not a replica, but build essence what was there before.
In the same use that was there
Yeah,
before?
to have a
Okay.
pizza parlor and a hall upstairs or whatever they were gonna do. Is that a special use or is it a variance?
Well, right
not
now,
allowed.
it
It's
wouldn't
not
be a
permitted
special
use.
use.
It's not allowed.
It's
a
not
special
allowed
use.
under your zoning
It's not
regulations.
allowed under our regs.
If
In R40.
if he thinks he has relief of a hardship, to get a use variance through the zoning board of appeals, the use variance would have to be, the application to the zoning board of appeals would then be forwarded to you for your input before they ended up making a decision. And also, if they did approve it, then it would have to come back, according to the regulations under that section of zoning board of appeals, would have to come back to the planning and zoning for a site plan approval,
Okay, so they, at this point, they would have to
Variance
go
is
under
zoning.
a hardship to the zoning.
Well, I guess that would be,
That would be the, just about the only way.
well, you know, I'm not an attorney, but I would think that would be the,
Sounds like what he said.
whether their attorney, who's not here, feels they can advise the applicant or the owner to do that. I
Mhm.
think it's up to them. But I would think, since this has been elaborated so extensively in the legal opinion of which you requested, I would think, in all fairness to them, because they're here, the owner is here, even though he's not represented with an attorney, I would suggest, if that was a possible process to go through that they wanted to undertake, it might be practical if you were willing to comment as to whether you would be able to give a favorable report back to the zoning board of appeals on an application such as that, because it would be coming back.
Mhm.
I mean, I hate to see someone waste their time, now that they've been before you to, you know, address this issue, to see if in fact you would give a favorable report. And here again, we don't have a full membership sitting tonight, so it would only be three of you. Whether or not all three of you, even if you concurred it would be a favorable report, that may not be enough to know if, say for instance, two of you are not sitting again, when it would come back on the referral. I mean, it could be that we have three other people or four other people that are different that may not, so I'm not sure if you want to do that, and a non-binding comment about how you feel about it.
Well, maybe the owners should talk to their attorney
Mhm.
and decide, they should decide what's the best cause, because we're not attorneys and
Right.
we're not sure. It would seem like that would be the best avenue.
Mhm.
I mean, because as you say, whether the three of us agree that we would be favorable, it doesn't really matter at this point. It matters whether,
I think Carol's just saying zoning board would come back to us
right,
for an opinion.
yeah.
So
Well,
if we-
when
if
that
we could give
then
them,
we can do it.
if we
but-
could give them some sense of where we stand.
Well,
But as
maybe,
Carol mentioned,
maybe part of it was.
two of us could be gone.
Maybe part of it was seeing the same footprint, the same layout of the building, not necessarily the same architectural design, but maybe a design that looked pleasing. Or if it had to be, because the building's no longer there, I mean, to duplicate the architectural style of it may not be as functional as, you know, now that it's not tied into that historic conversion. Well, the idea here is whether or not the use itself, while it existed, was a negative use in that it created problems. And even though it wasn't allowed in R40 as of right, whether or not, I think that comment or recommendation would probably want to evaluate if that use seemed a good operational use at the time that it existed. And that if the proposal that they were bringing to the zoning board was something that was built on the same footprint with the same parking layout and arrangement, and yet maybe perhaps a more functional building, but that was aesthetically exterior pleasing, that it didn't become something out of context for the neighborhood that it
Yep.
was in, might be something that would further be able to give you, you know, a favorable impression that it would be no different than what was approved before.
I mean, as far as my personal opinion, it never was an obtrusive building to begin with, and it didn't cause any volumes of traffic, no matter how busy they were. Certainly to the eye, it was pleasing, and I would, if it does come back to us for approval, we certainly would want a building that would fit into the neighborhood, would not stand out, so.
I
Those-
think there's actually great opportunity to offer something that,
Well,
something unique there.
those could
It
be
looks good.
some of your recommendations back on your response to the referral, and the fact that, you know, what they would submit as the footprint and the design to the zoning board of appeals, if that was what was being shown to you also, and it did not increase anything than what they had before, then it, you know, that's the measure or criteria that you probably want to focus on, as whether it was a prudent use to have the zoning board approve, based the fact that it's not a normal use allowed in that zone. So, I mean, the fact it's on a highway system is one factor, you know, and the fact that it's nestled into, even though it's a two-story, there's a high grade in the back with the other road in the back that's coming down the hill.
Mhm.
So it's not, the height of it being 2 stories is not obtrusive to the visual impact as you're going southerly down Forest Road, because you don't really see it until you actually
Okay.
have to turn and look at it, your head as you're driving straight by it. So I think all those factors
Yeah.
could be,
So take it
the
to the zoning
issues.
board of appeals,
Well,
right?
okay.
Yeah.
go to their lawyer and go to a zoning board of appeals. I mean,
Mhm.
certainly, I don't
I
think they're
think-
gonna
yeah.
abandon it at this point.
I mean, I don't think he's seen this yet, so I wish he could.
Could you identify yourself? Could you just go to the microphone here? Because you know,
Oh.
we have to pick you up. Nobody knows who you are. We all know who you are,
Ralph
but,
Albany, one of the owners. And basically, I don't think he's seen this yet, and I didn't either, obviously, because we just got it today, but if that's the process, go to the zoning board of appeals, and then you all give a recommendation, one way or the other. It seems like that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And any inkling of what you guys think about
I
putting
think,
it back?
personally, I said,
mean,
I
not-
think I said at the last meeting, I think it was a
Yeah.
good fit. I mean, it's a pile of rubble now, we'd like to see something there.
Yeah,
Seemed like a good use, it sounds like you might flip-flop the floors, I didn't think I had a problem with that.
yeah,
Seems like we have some good opportunity to put up a really nice-looking building, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same look, but something that fits in with the area. We'll get a look at that before, you know, anything moves forward, so
okay.
seems like a good solution to me.
yeah, and the other thing is you had minimal lighting. You didn't have any lighting of the parking lot per se, except what was shining off the lights on the wall
Mhm.
of the building. So, I mean, if you kept that same kind of mix in a development design, then I don't know, you know, here again, and you had various hours of operation also. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was originally given like midnight
Yeah,
or 11
yeah,
o'clock.
well, there was a curfew or something originally.
Mhm,
I think it was like 11, actually.
mhm. But anyways, I mean, all those things, you know, certainly, you have a well-lit parking lot, it's not gonna fly. Because it was pretty dark in there
Mhm.
when they operated, which was, you know, a minimal amount for the darkness of that area,
Mhm.
okay?
So the zoning board of appeals, it'll come back to us eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. All right, next order of business, PZ application 2012-13-8, Rosa Bianca Vineyards, interim development plan under phase 1 for limited wine tasting and wine sales of an existing accessory barn building in partial wine production use and with associated parking area, 1536 Middletown Avenue.
Okay, this is the narrative with a revised layout of the parking, which is crossed out because then he further tweaked it, and this is the other, so pass
Oh.
those out.
Tweak this.
It's this one here, okay? So the one I'm showing you is gonna be the second page,
This is the one we should look at,
yeah.
the second.
Plus also, there's an additional, and maybe, do you want me to kind of explain what you have here, just to show? He has the footprint of the first floor of the manufacturing area, and then the second floor with the tables and the tasting bar. And the revised map that you see, he can explain, which is, he changed, the only difference is this 18-foot wide minimum width for the driveway. And the statement of use hasn't changed.
This is gonna
From
be
what you
gravel-
submitted last
gravel
time.
parking? Is that what it is? Gravel, right? Yeah.
Do you
There's
know,
always gravel.
No, I've
It
seen
was always,
Mary, do you need anything?
I didn't know if he
Thank you.
decided to do anything else.
Okay, before we get into anything else, let me just pass out all the review comments received on this, okay? And I sent them to you.
Yes.
If you want another copy.
If you have it, okay.
Sure. Okay, the East Shore, Alex Sonati, Assistant Director of Health, submitted something February 27th. The East Shore District Health Department has discussed this request with Mr. Rosa Bianca, and a Class 1 food license permit is required for this proposal. The permit must be obtained prior to any wine tasting. We recommend approval. The second one is from the Fire Marshal Burt Bennell Jr., February 26. He states, "No problem with the use group or application. The owner occupant must follow all NFPA, CGS, and Connecticut State Fire Safety Codes." The next one is dated February 27th, 2014, from Thomas Cowell, the building official. Must be able to comply with the 2005 Connecticut Building Code and handicap accessibility requirements. The last received referral is from the Regional Water Authority, from Ron Walters, Senior Environmental Analyst, dated March 4th, 2014. They've reviewed the proposed interim plan under Phase 1. This will allow the applicant to begin wine tasting and sales on the property. Based on the information submitted, we have no comment. So he's got basically a clean bill of no real objections. I would suggest the East Shore, the fire marshal, and the building officials' comments be put into an approval. Kurt, do you have some comments on anything relating to this
Well,
now?
I mean, the one thing, and I think I mentioned the last time we talked, the issue is, what I talked to him about, making sure you at least have an 18-foot driveway, and I couldn't see, there have been some improvements out there. I don't think this one showed at scale to it, but the work they've been done, they're probably pretty close to it,
Mm-hmm.
existing, and the idea that, you know, you have limited, you're not gonna have a whole lot of traffic in and out, but you have to have a way so if someone comes down here, they could pull off to the side and let the car go by. I mean, and again, whether it's 18 feet or 20 feet, I don't think it makes a difference. He could attain it. I mean, but it's not a high volume generator.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's, and it's almost like a farm
Yeah.
stand in a different form. That's how I sort of looked at it. I mean, he did revise the parking to
Yeah,
provide the
parking.
handicap spaces and sort of an access aisle to it, and the layout seemed to, what do you got?
12.
Yeah, the 12 spots over there. And again, the
14.
worst thing you can do, which I've always said, is put a big sign, grand opening, and try to get too many people out there. It's not gonna work.
Mhm.
It's not geared towards a ton of business, it's a trickle in and trickle out type of thing.
Yep.
Well,
And that, you know, that's the biggest thing, to control that, so you don't have those big, you know, some type of control that you don't encourage anything like that, because you certainly don't want anybody try to park on Route 17. I mean, it's gotta be to a limited nature, and
this is the set of the winery regulations, in case you want to look at anything. But in it, as far as the size of the sign, it can't exceed 16 square feet, according to our regulations. And that's written into this regulation, of which the applicant had drafted, which was then further tweaked by the staff and the commission. And here again, you know, his statement of use indicates, basically, he'll be beginning to open a couple of days a week, because he has limited wine. Obviously, under the overall regulations, he's allowed hours of operation not to exceed from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday, and from 9 a.m. to midnight on Friday and Saturday. But here again, he's got limited space within the building. He's asking for the wine tasting to be within the building. He does indicate, at this time, no food will be served and glasses will be given to customers with tasting. I'm sure the permit he's required under the health code also will control what he's allowed to do based on, you know, if he ends up, which is allowed under the regulation, the sale of food to members of the public seated inside, then obviously he's got to get the appropriate
Yep.
East Shore food permit. But
At the time, I thought, the gentleman said that he might bring in a certain amount of food because he really has no kitchen facilities or
Right,
anything
right.
like that.
Well, and, you know, here again, I think it's going to be a matter of under control by the East Shore Health
I
Department.
agree.
Because, you know, I don't
Yep.
see us conditioning
No.
every little thing that he
Yep.
does here, because obviously he's got a bigger operation allowed once his other big building is built.
I think our
at
main,
the
our
time
main
he does.
concern was the parking, and this seems
Mhm.
much improved.
Mhm.
The driveway and the parking, you can turn around.
The only other thing I would ask, just to make sure we're all on the same page with him, he indicates events at the winery will be addressed as the need arises, and parking for such events will be addressed at that time. I mean, what do you mean by that? Would you be notifying someone that you're going to have a one-day event with outside or something? If you're having an event, because this is actually for wine tasting within a building. And if you're talking about an event, what kind of event would you be planning?
If someone wanted to or rent a building or space and have, some business luncheon or something like that, type of thing, not necessarily a luncheon, but a gathering of some sort, where you would have an influx of people coming in at one time, but the influx is limited to
Yeah.
the seating capacity they have in the building. So that would be the event. There is nothing where we'd be having harvest parties or, outdoor music and that type of thing. I
Yeah.
don't see that now or in the immediate future. So events, I really don't see any, I don't plan on any of that in this building. This
Mhm.
building is strictly to test the waters and, start getting the process
Because
going.
your statement of use says the wine tasting and sales, I mean, it starts off in the first sentence, is in the existing barn. So I guess just wanted to be clear that if you were gonna expand it to have some seating outside
Well-
and have a band and,
No,
I mean, I
I'm not-
think you should reveal that now so that, they understand that that's been part of this approval, or they
Well, that's
think.
part of the approval for
The bigger
whole, the bigger, but
yeah.
not for this. I'm not looking to do weddings and, pitch tents to
Mhm.
do things like that. I don't have the space, not only within the barn, but also on the outside once I start planting.
Well,
In addition, parking is limited, as we all
Mhm.
know, and this is really just to get me out of the gate and started.
mhm.
This is not, what the final product is gonna hopefully be.
Plus, your wine production is gonna be much less than what you would have had at the larger building
True.
that you, right? Well, and you're also concurrently going to be planting your fields, correct?
Yep.
When is that gonna,
Hopefully May. Plants are
Mhm.
coming at the end of April, and my posts are ordered, but they should be in 3 or 4 weeks.
Mhm.
So May, I'm planning on May
Mhm.
to start the planting, the first acre.
Guys have any comments?
No, you need 2 bathrooms, by the way. Calls for, the building code calls for both sexes. You can't get away with one
So
anymore.
when you grab-
It's been like that for years,
Yeah.
just so you're aware, on your floor plan.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we discussed that, and they were good with that. I have to modify my bathroom because I don't have any.
You need one for male and one female, just so you know.
Okay.
Well, building, here again,
It's
if,
in the building
Yeah.
code.
if
That's the
you
building.
condition it to those memos.
It's conditioned there, but just so you're aware on
yeah.
on your plan.
It's the building department.
Mhm. Well, I do have a drafted one with,
I like the layout a lot better than the last one, though, on the parking.
Oh, I agree.
let me just write these in. Do you have any other
No, no other
concerns you
comments.
wanted to?
Nope.
Okay. The 3 numbered ones are those 3 officials.
I do have one.
It's too late.
Slightly. No, it's not. Going back to what you just brought up, events at the winery be addressed as the need arises. So we are approving just this building and what can be held in that small area. And he has no reason to come back to us for any other type of event until it gets to the, I just
Yeah.
don't like the idea that this is still in there, you know what I mean?
Would you
It
be
kind of
willing
leaves it
to
open.
cross that last sentence out and initial it?
Sure.
Okay, why don't you just, here, why don't you do that on that?
Just crossing an I,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
Because
want
I have the approval based on contained in the submitted application documents that's dated today and on the maps that are on these sheets, describing the sheets, okay, so.
Okay, I move to approve Rosa Bianca Vineyards
Okay.
interim development plan under Phase 1 of the PZ site plan application number 2, 2012/13-8 for limited wine tasting and wine sales with associated parking area and existing accessory barn building that is also partial wine production use, 1536 Middletown Avenue, map 67, lot 70, R40 zone, owner applicant Charles Rosabianca, as contained in submitted application documents dated 3/6/14 on the entitled maps Rosabianca Vineyards, 1536 Middletown Avenue, initial startup site plan 2/6/14, revised 3/6/14, and first floor manufacturing 3/6/14, second floor retail and tasting with the following standard conditions, 1420, and the special condition 21, which is adherence to requirements of the town building official in his memorandum dated February 27th, 2014.
All in favor?
I'll second that.
Second, right? Second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Together.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
You might get to the next one.
So next order of business is under new business. Application 2013-14-11 site plan. It's a 5-year quarry site operations mine plan for 2014 to 2018. 1 Forest Road, assessor map 25, lot 12, zone industrial quarry I-1. Owner applicant Tilcon Incorporated. Care of Frank Lane.
Here,
And I have with me Frank Lane from Tilcon, and this is
Thank you.
what seems to come around very quickly now. Every 5 years we come back to the village's commission and get reapproval for the next phases of
It seems
the
like
mining
we're just
plan. Orientating, this is Thompson Road, right here, the intersection between Thompson Road and Village Road. We are in this building right here, the town hall. The quarry is this big, long area that's highlighted in green. There's Lane, and we have up here Auger Road, so you can see it's a pretty fairly large area. The mining is currently obviously being proposed within areas that have already been disturbed. And there are 1, 2, 3 mining areas, very consistent with the last plans that I've brought before you. They are different floor elevations. For instance, this is about elevation 140. This is about 210. And then this is about 280. And it clearly identifies how the progression of mining would go by years. For instance, this color block right here is 500,000 tons of material that would come out in 2014. This would be the 2 tons, 2 million tons, and this would be 1 million tons. So it's progressing in a northerly area. There has been other plans that we've been working down in this area, but basically it's about the same as the last 5 years. All the work, again, was within the existing quarry. And really, I think we just would like to open it to any questions that you may have of Frank, who's there on a day-to-day basis, and me there serving just once in a while.
We do have a referral that was made to 3 people. The first one, Kurt Weiss, dated February 18th. There are no outstanding engineering staff comments regarding the above referenced application. It was also referred to Ron Walters, the Regional Water Authority, and in an email, he just indicated he would not be commenting on the 5-year plan on Tilcon. And then I also referred it to the fire marshal, and he verbally told me his review would actually be at the time of the blasting permits. And he was okay with the overall approval of the plan. So he didn't have any written comments to enter in at this time.
Doug and Fran, do you have any comments?
Yep.
Doug?
The only thing is,
Would they be doing anything with surveying any of the properties around the area due to the blasting? Is that required?
Pre-blast surveys, I think, and probably Frank can address that earlier. Once in a while, if you have an issue, do you go out with a seismograph?
For the record, my name's Frank Lane. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Tilcon, Connecticut. Every time we use explosives, and this has gone on for well over 45 years, we have an independent service that places seismographs
Oh, wait a
either
s- hold
between
on.
the site of the
Hold on just a
Hold
second,
on,
Frank,
man.
sorry,
I
just
have
wanna change the tape.
an independent service that places seismographs between the site of the blast and the nearest company-owned structure. Additionally, if persons have made complaint, either directly or through the town fire marshal, we seek their permission and set up a seismograph right at their house to determine the vibration level. I can tell you that our nearest neighbors will never not know that we're blasting. I can also tell you that with the years and years of data we've collected, we know we are not damaging the structures.
I know you haven't been on the commission when we did the last review and approval, which was in March of 2009. And that time, and even in the previous ones before that, commissions never really ended up having any special conditions of approval. It's pretty straightforward. And actually, when this came up that they were going to be coming in, I know Charlie Gunn had mentioned at that meeting the desire to go out to the site when the weather improved to have a tour of what's been done. And Mr. Lane had agreed to, have a tour.
Sure,
Of the,
that would be fine. I'm surprised that everyone here hasn't already been there on the Historical Society tour buses.
I have not.
That's one of their biggest fundraisers every year.
My
But-
daughter's been there, I haven't.
But certainly, we're amenable to that. Probably it would be in May after we're running a second shift, so something is going on, and the convenience would be if you could arrange to use maybe the Senior Citizen Center bus or something, because it's difficult to tour when you have a parade of cars. It's better if you can
Yeah.
get everyone in one vehicle. And just to step backwards a little bit about the blasting issue, you need to understand that the use of explosives is the single most expensive part of our process. And to the extent that we disturb neighbors or anything, that is hugely expensive energy dollars going someplace other than into breaking the stone. Huge effort is put into the designing and the managing of these explosions to use the energy to break the rock, not to go elsewhere and disturb people. It's become quite a technical science.
Well, and the other thing is, Tilcon has come in with more recent applications for on some new buildings up there, which are better state-of-the-art processing for the stone, so that you'll be able to see those also that you've approved. So we'll coordinate when the weather gets better, and hopefully all of you can participate, okay? So, so I do have a motion that's just reference to the map.
I might say that Tilcon has always been a good neighbor for North Branford, and I know they continue to be. Make a move to approve planning and zoning application 2013/14-11, site plan 5-year quarry site operation mine plan for 2014 to 2018, 1 Forest Road, Assessor Map 25, Lot 12, Zone Industrial Quarry 1-1, owner applicant Tilcon Incorporated, CO Frank Lane, as contained in submitted application on entitled map 5-year mine plan, Tilcon, Connecticut Incorporated, North Branford, Connecticut, dated February 2014, scale 1 to 400 feet, prepared by Chris Killo Engineering LLC, and no conditions.
The second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. 3-0.
Okay.
Thanks. All right. Next order of business is applicant request of a modification of approved condition number 14 of P and Z application 2012-13-13, Shantz Farm subdivision. Applicant Sunwood Development Corp. to add alternate options of other entities as potential owners of the open space, the South Central Regional Water Authority, or a homeowners association for section 314.C.D and 314.G of the subdivision regulations. Good evening.
Okay. What I'm passing out, Joan, is your letter that's directed to me, which you can then comment. And also in the handout, the condition 14 that's in the approval letter, so that the commission can reference to that. And I also have a draft motion based on what might possibly be done on this item, okay? So, based on what your discussions will be afterwards. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Summary, please.
For the record, my name is Joan Malloy. I'm an attorney with the firm of Laughlin Fitzgerald. My office is located at 150 South Main Street in Wallingford, Connecticut. I'm sort of sorry to be back to see you one more time, but I hope you won't take that the wrong way. As I indicated in my letter, during the approval process for the Shantz subdivision, the Land Trust had indicated its willingness. I think it had even written a letter saying that it would be willing to accept a donation of the open space. They haven't made a decision, but there is some reconsideration going on. And because our approval specifically stated that it had to go to the Land Trust, we discussed with Carol the proposal to seek a modification to allow us a little more flexibility. You may recall during the approval process, we first offered it to the town. The town said that they didn't want it. We're still hopeful the Land Trust will take it. If not, our next intent was to contact the Regional Water Authority to see if they would want, and if all three have chosen not to accept the land as the open space, the other alternative as contained in the subdivision regulation is a homeowners association. As I've indicated, regardless of who the open space is conveyed to, it would be subject to all the conditions that were in the original approval. I had previously forwarded to Carol a sample deed to the Land Trust in which I had itemized all those things. Presuming we get the form of the deed correctly, whoever is the grantee, it's going to be that language. And so what we're simply seeking is the flexibility to use those alternatives. Obviously, we'll keep Carol informed of what's happening. If it is an association, I will work with providing Carol with the information. I have done subdivisions before where we do have an association that takes the open space. We form the association before we sell the lot. The deeds say it's subject to being a mandatory member of the association. So we'll make sure that we have everything that your regulations require. Again, that's the fallback
Yeah, there's
choice.
specific things in the subdivision regulations if a homeowners association. It's quite detailed. Plus, it would be the integration of what's contained for the passive uses, and also those passive uses, including public access to the Farm River for fishing, other passive recreational uses, including a walking trail along the Farm River, and also town rights for the new bridge repair, emergency repair, and potential future reconstruction, and for the drainage, town drainage easement rights for the detention and the water quality basins. Obviously, at this point, the developer is, and the applicant, Mr. Wiederman, who's present here, along with the attorney, Joan Malloy, is anxious to have the map recorded and is looking forward to doing that as soon as some of these items that have to be checked with the
Yeah.
map for recording
Right.
is done. But that's almost on track, another 2 or 3 weeks at the most, probably. So, Bill, you'll probably be the person that will be signing the map. At some point, I'll be calling you, once I receive them, for you to.
Okay.
They have until, I think it's May 12th,
Yeah, but we
or
wanna-
May
we'd
14th.
ideally like to
Yeah.
start recording this
Before
month.
that.
and-
And
Okay.
one of the
Move things
things
along.
is, there's reference to the North Branford Land Trust having this conveyance
Yeah.
on those maps, and, you know, one of the changes is to just leave it blank. This doesn't really have to be decided upon on the entity at the time of the filing of the subdivision lot maps. It has to be before there's, at least for the conservation easements, before a final approved set of maps are done. Because what the commission did was a conditional approval of lots based on whether they would submit bonding. And if they, I'm also filing a certificate with a recording that I've had the town attorney look at and approve, that states that no buyer can buy it unless there's an approval of a bond, or that the public improvements have been completed to the satisfaction of the town. And then also that it has to come back to the commission for approval of a final approval for recording, so that then at that point, the buyer can purchase the property, and it can be transferred by the developer. So it's because of the new changes in the state law in 2012 to allow a better ability for a developer to financially organize his development and not be stretched out unreasonably financially, and also to be able to do things in a timely manner in a sequence event without having to bond for the entire large project all up front.
Okay. So let's just.
Okay.
So let's
So-
get to this.
So what I was suggesting,
So we just
having
have to.
the same paragraph, and I have a draft motion, but to modify that condition to add to the end of the condition, the following additional wording: in the event that the North Branford Land Conservation Trust declines the open space areas and the proposed conservation easements, alternative options as potential owners of the open space shall be either the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority or a homeowners association per, you know, I cite the sections of the subdivision regulations. The conveyance of the open space to either of these entities shall be subject to the same rights, restrictions, and easements as listed in condition number 14. And the deeds, the open space deeds and the lot conservation easements shall be subject to that entity's review instead of the North Branford Land Trust. Because what will, the parties reviewing it and approving it was the town planner, the land trust, and the town attorney.
Right.
Just to make sure that it was an acceptable form.
Anyone, you guys have any questions on here?
And, you know,
Yeah,
these
okay.
particular two entities are allowed under that open space as a possible entity. The other thing is, as far as the conservation easements, because they were required by the zoning regulation and also the inland wetland approval, the enforcement of those areas would still be by the town to
Okay.
to the violator, which would be the owner of the property. So even if it's deeded the conservation easement to any entity other than the town still has the obligation to do the enforcement. So I just want to make sure you're clear of that, because if you think a homeowner's organization is like, the cat watching the house, or whatever the expression is,
I'm not good at expressions, so I'm not gonna try to correct that.
yeah, don't even go there, but, in
All
other
right,
words,
I think we understand.
yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's the same,
Okay.
just a difference of whose name is gonna be. Move to approve a modification of approval, condition number 14 of P and Z application 2012/13-13 Chance Farm subdivision, applicant Sunwood Development Corporation, to add to the end of condition 14 the following additional wording. In the event that the North Branford Land Trust declines the open space areas and the proposed conservation easements, alternative options as potential owners of the open space shall be either South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority or a homeowners association per section 314.c.d and 314.g of the subdivision regulations. The conveyance of the open space to either of these entities shall be subject to the same rights, restrictions, and easements as listed in condition number 14. The open space deeds and lot conservation easements shall be subject to that entity's review instead of the North Branford Land Trust.
Second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Motion carries, 3-0. Thank you.
Okay.
When are you
Thank you
ever
for
Thanks
gonna
for
get
waiting
this-
around.
When are you ever gonna get this done?
before next month or something.
Yeah.
Well, next time we want to hear from you is when we're trying to get you to approve a bond amount, because we have most of the improvements done.
Yeah.
And we want to build the house.
Right.
And Kurt, I'll have a list of that, sort of erosion control stuff.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, thank you. All right, next order of business is the minutes from February 6th.
Somehow I missed that. I didn't
Okay.
send them to you,
No
so
problem.
we'll
All right,
just
I think we're
have to
adjourned
table
then.
that.
Well, Charlie's not here anyway for that.
Oh, yeah,
that's-
Fran.
That's right. Fran, you
Fran, you
weren't
weren't-
here,
that's
you
right,
can't
yeah, you're
vote
right.
on them.
Good
You know,
point.
but I believe, was that, the last one, I was here for that meeting of, we just talked about, the Rolling Meadows.
One was from January, though.
From January.
Oh, okay.
See, it started
Some were from,
in January
Oh, okay,
16th.
because I knew it was there
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
You weren't here because we
The
didn't
6th.
have a meeting February 20th because we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah, but I was in the
But you were
hospital
here,
then, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
all right, so
Okay.
any, what else?
Okay,
You don't need to have anything else,
the
but if
planning
there is
re-
something, we'll consider it.
Application, scheduling and receipt. I did not receive anything new, so there might be some things coming in, but
Mhm.
they're
Yeah,
gonna
well.
be maybe in another 2 months. We have the continuation of the Rolling Meadows for the next time, so hopefully we can get some resolution of that, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Agreed.
so we do need to have a meeting next March 20th.
Yeah.
And then on municipal referrals, I don't have anything that would be impacting the town. Do you have anything to report from the COG, Doug? No?
No,
Okay.
the last meeting was canceled because of snow.
Oh,
The meeting before that was, we didn't have enough for a quorum.
Mhm. Okay. Well, the other thing I just want to discuss, I know I had sent out information by email about the annual dinner and conference by the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Agencies, of which this commission is a member, and the fact that the note speaker that's going to be at the March 13th annual meeting, is the Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection, and he will be presenting information on the 2012 medical marijuana law, and as well as licensing requirements, and the whole discussion of regulatory process, and if it preempts local zoning regulations. Also, they're planning to have testimony from zoning officers who have had personal experience with this issue within their community. As you remember, you did institute a moratorium and passed it with the expiration at the end of December of this year. Yeah, December 2nd, yeah. So it would be interesting. I know, Bill, you were thinking you were.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get back to that.
Doug, Nancy said no. Doug said yes, Fran said yes, Charlie said yes. The one thing that's happened since February 21st, when I canvassed you, is the town manager has instituted a freeze on all budgets and unnecessary spending due to the public works budget exceeding based on the snowstorms that we've had. So his concern is whether we have enough money. I did discuss how all of you had wanted to go to this, and he did say he thought if one could go, he'd be able to allow that.
I won't go,
I don't have to.
because I was unclear if I could go.
Well,
anyway, so.
I guess, you know,
Doug?
it's.
Congratulations.
I actually have the COG meeting that night, so
Oh, so maybe
maybe it would
you,
be,
Charlie, or Nancy? Oh, Nancy didn't want to. You or
Well,
Charlie?
Fran, would you be
Fran?
willing to go? I'm paying for my own, even though I have money
As
in
long
my
as the
budget.
town's paying, I'll go. I'm not paying
Yeah.
for my own. I think the town owes us that much
Yeah.
to pay
Yeah.
for a lousy dinner.
Yeah.
I agree.
That that is to
You-
their benefit.
You'll
what
be
we
the
want.
designated
Right.
person, and I'll be the taker of the notes, okay?
Okay.
Because,
Good.
I mean,
Well, that'd be good
obviously,
if
we
you
have
could
to
go.
have input
Didn't
from a
they-
direct
No, no,
source.
Yep.
Because if we're gonna do something with our regulations to address this, it'd be prudent to go to this event.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I believe
Yeah,
that,
I agree.
you know,
there shouldn't
Be
be
nice
a
to have a couple
restriction
of
on
us.
it.
Uh-huh.
well, the town
Right.
should be paying for it because it
Yeah.
is, I mean, we all put in our time and effort here
Yeah.
free, and that's great that we do it because we want to do it.
Yeah,
But this is a learning process that is going to affect the town.
yeah.
So, you know, it's like
Okay.
sending me to school. You know.
You'll have to come and educate us all when you get back then.
You know,
Alright,
the only
that's
thing
good.
I noticed on it is with the regulations, it not only is dispensaries, but it's also where we didn't really look at, there's,
The growers.
the growers have to be in state also.
There's
Yeah.
4 of them, right?
Gee, I think
Up to
Branford
10.
got a dispensary,
Yeah.
maybe I could
maybe
grow it
not.
on my farm.
but we may,
Yeah.
we, you know
That's in
something?
flux right now, that,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's,
There's supposed to
done.
be 5 dispensaries, and I think the one in Torrington, I don't know what the status of that is.
Southington and West Haven, I believe,
Yeah,
are two of them so
West Haven,
far.
yeah.
It's supposed
Ladies
to,
and gentlemen,
yeah.
I'm hurting. I gotta
Okay.
leave.
All right, so motion to
Okay.
adjourn?
Second it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. We adjourn.
I am hurting.
9:00.